about to start the September 2019 edition of Nkata Umuibe. We are sorry we are starting a few minutes late, but we'll make up for the lost time, both in the quality of the speech that we'll hear today and the interactive session that will follow thereafter. So without much further ado, I want to invite our host, the chairman of Enugu Sports Club, Honorable Nkata, to give us his welcome remarks.
My duty here is very simple, just to welcome you to this September series of Nkata Umuibe. Today we have a very distinguished speaker, which I'm not qualified to call or introduce. But you are welcome to another series of Nkata Umuibe. Please permit me to acknowledge the presence of some of the dignitaries. All of us are dignitaries. There's some of the dignitaries here with us. Permit me to welcome the former chairman of this club, Chief Ben Letiaba, Ifenananewu. The man who started this vision of Nkata Umuibe. Permit me also to welcome Professor Azoka Dike and Professor Mrs. Azoka Dike also. Permit me also to welcome our own Professor Paul Okonkwo and the wife, Professor Mrs. Rina Okonkwo. Permit me also to welcome the patron of this club. I'm talking of no other person than Chief Eric Chime. You are welcome, sir. Also, permit me to welcome Obueri High Chief Fidelma Ndelik Malife, Ajay Okaduku of Anam. You are welcome, sir. I also welcome CHIKWE. You are welcome to the program also. I also welcome Greg Bajogo. You are welcome. Please, I cannot permit me also to welcome Professor Pat Ngu. Professor Pat Ngu. And also his wife, Right Honorable Stella Ngu. Stella Ngu was the former House of Representative member of Uzo 1 and the Igwe local government. You are welcome, ma. Also, we have the members of the executive of Enugu Sports Club. Retired PAMSEC, Honorable Imabo. And the third-time member of Enugu House of Assembly. You are welcome, sir. Permit me also to introduce our guest speaker today, Dr. IHEKWEAZU. Dr. Chike, we are happy to see you in our midst. Because ihe bịakwa tata makwa ịka nkata gbasara onwe anyị nkata ụmụ Igbo. Ịka ihe na-akpa maka nkata ụmụ Igbo, anyị chee maka nya, anyị chee tata, wee chee maka echi, maka na asị na echi dị ime. Maka ọ bụ na ị mara ihe mee gị nya, ị ma mana ihe ị ga na-eme tata. Ada ọ bụ na ị mara ihe ị ga-eme tata, nwere ka ị ga-esi kwado echi. N'ebe anyị, eji m aha ndị Sports Club wee na-asụ unu nnọọ, Chukwu gazie unu. Biko, ana m ekelekwa ndị nke nọ na ndị mere na ihe a na-aga ọfụma, mmadụ dịka Patrick Okigbo, Leadership for Center for Memories. Also, permit me also to welcome Nana Ude, the coordinator of Center for Memories. Center for Memories dịka di na nwunye, ihe anyị na-eme bụ ka ọ dị mma, ka ọ dịrị ndị Igbo mma, ndị be anyị nnọọ.
Thank you very much. This Nkata Umuibe is a monthly event we hold every first Friday of the month. It's organized by the Center for Memories, and to tell us a bit more about that center and the other activities that the center organizes, I want to invite a member of the leadership, my co-conspirator, Patrick Okibo III.
It's always a pleasure to have people come through every time we put together this event. Because without you, we won't be here. All the effort we go through to put together these monthly series and all the other things we do at the center, is for you. And what's the Center for Memories? The intent is to create a place where we can curate our collective memories, Igbo culture, Igbo traditions, in the hope that the more we understand who we are as a people, the more or the sooner we'll find a path out of the seeming quagmire we're in at the moment. The Center for Memories was commissioned in December 2017, and it's a labor of love by a number of us. A few are in the room, a number are not here. And there's a leadership team that holds this responsibility in trust for Ndibo. So leadership might not be the right word, but really some kind of a trusteeship. I happen to be one of the 5. The other members are Nkemweke, who's seated here. A round of applause for him. There is Ndidi Okonkwo Muneli, who's not here, but ably represented by her parents. Nkiru Abo and Jude Ilo. The activities of the center include a number of exhibitions we put through together from time to time. We've got one running there at the moment. We also have language classes especially for the younger ones. And through the support of Fidelity Bank, we have a library, Oba Akwụkwọ Ụmụaka, which is an attempt to create a place where young people, young children can congregate and avail them of tools to expand their intellect. As we have Nkata Umuibe for the adults, we have Nzuko Ụmụaka for the younger kids. So if you have children in and around Enugu, please endeavor to bring them to the center. We also have a monthly book club where young people in Enugu pick a book written by an Igbo author, and they read and discuss, especially in light of what the learnings can contribute to our sojourn as a people. So it's with a whole lot of honor, privilege, some trepidation that we continue to administer the affairs of the center. We're constantly looking for volunteers. We're constantly looking for support because the task is huge, and it's with a lot of fear that we engage it every day. But we know that the more of us who aggregate around this idea, we can make something of it. So without further ado, permit me to invite, yes, my co-conspirator, Nana Ode, who convenes Nkata Umuibe, to tell us a bit about Nkata Umuibe, and then invite our speaker to speak. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the narrative must continue about the Igbo society. And we have to continue to connect it with the young people, especially our young people. And I'm sure when we see and hear the kind of stories that move around town, you understand why we should have this event as regularly as we can hold it. And since May last year, we have convened here to discuss a lot of themes that cut through the contemporary issues and prehistoric issues around the Igbo society. We've discussed identity, we've discussed values, we've discussed family, we've discussed business, we've discussed technology, and we have discussed Biafra and post-Biafra. And in all of these conversations, what excites us the most is the way our young people connect with the stories that they hear from here and what they do with it thereafter. And like we always tell them, do not let anyone define your identity for you. Do not let anyone shape our narrative for us. We will continue to do that. This is one of the platforms that we have to do it, and we will keep pushing it, we will keep doing it, we will not stop. We have had the privilege of hosting a lot of speakers. We have had Professor Denkalo, we have had Dike Chukwumerije, we've had Cheko Dua, Yvonne Mbanefo, Joaba, IHEKWEAZU. And the story continues. The story goes on. Today, we have another distinguished speaker. And he has chosen a topic that I know will stir not just the audience, but will stir the airwaves. But just to make a point that for those of us here who are tweeting on social media, remember our hashtag Nkata Umuibe and hashtag UCHE. We have to keep trending all over Nigeria on the first Friday of every month. Now, Dr. CHIKWE IHEKWEAZU is a graduate of the College of Medicine from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He also has a master's degree in public health from the Heinrich Heine University Düsseldorf in Germany. In 2003, he was awarded a fellowship for the European Program for Intervention Epidemiology Training, and then he subsequently completed his public health specialization in the United Kingdom. He's a trained infectious disease epidemiologist and has over 20 years experience working in senior public health and leadership positions in several national public health institutes, including serving as co-director of the Center for Tuberculosis at the South African National Institute for Communicable Diseases, Johannesburg. Thank God he's no longer in South Africa. He was also a medical epidemiologist consultant with the UK's Health Protection Agency and at Germany's Robert Koch Institute. He has led several short-term engagements and consultancy roles within the World Health Organization in response to major outbreaks and supporting the design of surveillance systems in Geneva, Lesotho, Botswana, Sudan, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Turkey, and Nigeria. He is currently the Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and was until January 2018 the Acting Director of the Regional Center for Disease Control for West Africa. Before his appointment, CHIKWE was the managing partner at AP Afrique, which is a health consultancy firm that is active around the world. He is widely published in medical peer-reviewed journals, and he is here today to address us on Akon Nuche, the education delusion. Please, a round of applause for Dr. CHIKWE IHEKWEAZU.
Ndeba ekene munu, ndewon, ndejen, ka, ndewon. Ọ na-agụ m akwa na mba ebe a hụ ndị kpọrọ ka nne na nna. Nne nke m anwụọla, nna nke m anwụọla, kama mbịa ebe a hụ Prọfesọ Okonkwo na Prọfesọ Dike na ụmụ nwanyị ha. Ya na-atọ m na ha dị ndụ, hụkwa n'ihe ụmụ ha na-eme. n'Igbo. Igbo anyị na-asụ bụ maka ha nwa. Maka ebe anyị nwa nọ, ma ebe a mụọ nọ, ebi m n'Abuja. Emerubeghị m ya. Ụmụ nke m, ma mụ abụ onye Igbo, nwaanyị bụ onye Igbo. Ụmụ m anaghị asụ Igbo ọfụma. Ana ọ na-ewute m, asị m ka m kwupụta ya ebe a. Kama mgbe papa anyị lụrụ ụmụ nwaanyị ndị ọcha lata ebe a, ha agbalịa anyị na-asụ Igbo. Ọhịa ọ jiri mkpa ka anyị na-agbakọ taa na-asụrụ onwe anyị. Kama aga m akọ ihe niile m bụ n'uche taa n'Igbo. Ọ ga-aratụ ahụ. So let me change to English. I'm really proud to be here. I told Patrick and Nana that I'll do everything possible to be here. And today there were some hurdles in my journey. But I finally got here somehow. This event started when Patrick visited me 2 months ago. And I showed him something I had just discovered. I had opened one of my father's boxes that we had put in the store for many, many years, and discovered my father was in Germany during the Biafra War, but his heart was here. I discovered newspaper articles numbered from every day. Every single article published with anything on Biafra was carefully collected, dated, with notes on them. Now, all these articles were put in folders. The newspaper articles, of course, they have aged with time. But we started having this deep discussion on what we will do with these articles. And eventually, I will speak to my mother, Professor Jill Dike, to think of what we can do in the librarian function to bring it to our people, to read and understand the perspective of journalists in Europe to what was happening in Nigeria between 67 and 70. But today is not about that. That is a story for another day. Like many of you know, I'm currently engaged with the health sector of our country. And the natural default position would have been to talk about health. It's a subject I'm obviously passionate about. But I do this so often on TV, on radio, and I do not really think there's so much new that I can share today on this platform. The alternative would have been to speak on government and governance and to share with you my experience in the Nigerian public sector. But as many of you that would have played this role, you know that it's better to tell the story when you're out of it. So I decided to use this opportunity to share with you some thoughts on a subject that has to be at the top of our anxieties. We are losing touch with the world. Our education is not preparing us. It is not preparing us for the world ahead of us. In preparation for this great opportunity, 2 weeks ago, I went to my hometown, Amibo. We pride ourselves as the origin of Igbo migration and Igbo dispersion. We have 2 historically important secondary schools in Amibo, the King Jaja High School and the Dick Tiger Memorial School, secondary school. Both of these schools, as you will recognize, are named after 2 great icons of Igbo land that need no further introduction. For those of you that do not know, King Jaja of Opobo is actually from Umudroha in Amibo, a 10-minute walk from my ancestral home. His family is there until today. And if we were as clever as others are, we would have prepared the compound to receive a constant stream of tourists while selling memorabilia and drinks. But again, that's the story for another day. I went to these two schools to see how they were doing, to ensure that I wasn't speaking completely from my elitist Abuja lens. Many of my aunts had attended these schools, especially the Tiger Memorial, during the post-war reconstruction. The community in Amiibo regularly contributed funds for new classrooms and other rehabilitation projects for the schools. Approaching King Jaja High School on Friday afternoon was heartbreaking. It really was. I started a conversation with a handful of students loitering about and asked them what they were doing. They told me that they hardly have classes, except just before exams. They do have a few teachers who all have different other activities that take up most of their time. There was really very little going on. Now, I do not know how representative this school is for the schools in Imo State. The only state which apparently had, as we were told by my former governor, free education from primary to university levels. You would know who my former governor is. I am also not sure about how that experience is representative of the experience across the rest of Igbo land. But it was cause for deep concern. Those schools were definitely not going to produce an educated child. From all the inquiries I've been making leading up to today, and everyone I've asked, it is clear that public education, as many of us in this room experienced, is in a mess. But that too, actually, is a story for another day. Allow me to reminisce a little bit about the privilege of my own education. I grew up in a town an hour from here that provided for us the most amazing childhood experience one can imagine. One that with all the wealth I could possibly have, there's no place I can imagine that this would be possible in the Nigeria of today. Just 40 years later. A town where children rode on bicycles to school, on streets lined with melina trees, Nsukka with its picturesque Obuba, Onuyi, Nru rolling hills, and its tight-knit community, taught us about community relationships and history way before we opened the first page of any textbook in any school. Nsukka, if there are any of you here, they general. From Nsukka to Federal Government College Enugu to the Enugu campus of the University of Nigeria, I had what I thought was a great education. I crammed in as much as I could. I passed my exams somehow, and then proudly wore the white lab coat that symbolized my newfound status of being a doctor. You know, it was a great feeling when you're asked your name, and you no longer say, my name is CHIKWE IHEKWEAZU. You say, my name is Dr. IHEKWEAZU. Well, clapping is good. The doctor not just was symbolical of a profession, but also of an almost godlike status. With my father already being a doctor, even in the village, I moved from being referred to as opera doctor to doctor. Not an easy feat. I felt like I was on top of the world. I drove around Enugu in my red Mazda 323 with a stethoscope permanently on the dashboard. I wonder how many of my colleagues still do this today. It definitely helped with the cops. But as much as my education earned me this status, my enlightenment really happened when I moved out of Nigeria to Germany to start my master's degree program in public health. There were 30 of us in our class, and for our first assignment, we were all given 30 different topics. So the teamwork that had helped us so much through the years of education in Nigeria immediately failed in this circumstance. There were no past questions to rely on either. My first assignment was to compare the health systems in Germany, the UK, and the USA. We were expected not only to hand in a paper, but to do a presentation. I knew I was cornered. There was nowhere to escape. I dived into the subject matter like any Niger guy faced with an apparently insurmountable problem would do. But this time, I was not cramming the nerve supplies to muscles or the names of chemicals that made up medicine, but I was immersed in discovery. I had a feeling I had never had before, one of joy in gaining deep and new insights into a complex set of issues. It was such a liberating feeling, one I actually, at some point, started enjoying. This newfound love for seeking depth in knowledge of specific subjects is one of the key reasons I've progressed fairly rapidly in my career. I found a new type of love in understanding how disease spread in populations. From the onset, from when I stumbled onto epidemiology, it was never just a profession, and it has never been, nor just a means of earning a living. It was something I became deeply interested in and spent hours on. I read books, I watched films, I argued with friends about why measles spreads so rapidly and tuberculosis does not. Not really the most apparently interesting topic for a 20-year-old. But in that context, in Germany, I met other friends and colleagues who had gained as much and often more knowledge in similar areas. It was really cool and sometimes even sexy to have depth in knowledge. You saw people proudly explain the most complex circumstance. Continuous learning became not a problem, but a joy. Life went on, career progressed, and we kept pushing and kept gaining depth. But in 2007, something else happened. I got invited to a conference in Arusha, Tanzania, called TED. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. I had no idea at the time what it was. Apparently, my friend and brother, CHIKWE, had recommended that we both go. Prior to this, the only conferences I attended, like I just mentioned, were not just on health, but on epidemiology and on the spread of diseases. I asked IK, my bro, what are we going to do in this place? He explained to me that TED was like a mini Davos. And if nothing else, let's go and enjoy Tanzania for a week. Well, TED had just started in the US and was coming to Africa for the first time. Now, this was before the whole Africa Rising narrative had gained strength. It brought together speakers doing amazing things across the continent to share the stories of what they were doing. There was Patrick Awa, who had just started the first liberal arts university in Accra, Ghana. I listened to Patrick talk about his university. Patrick spoke about how during an exam, the students in his university had come up to him and said to him that they did not want an invigilator during an exam. That the degree that they were going to get in this university meant too much to them for them to belittle it by copying each other. That they would therefore hold each other accountable. That they would hold each other accountable. That they were not children that needed an invigilator to make sure that they can reproduce what they had learned. I met people like Orio Kolo, who had started a platform. This was in the early days of blogging, that put the contents of the Kenyan parliament for the first time on the internet. I met Dele Olojede, a journalist who had just won the Pulitzer Prize for a series of articles he did on Rwanda. We heard stories that we had never heard before of Africans transforming their own spaces. These were not the stories of Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs or Richard Branson, the books that we see on the shelves of our airports airport bookshops. But these are the stories of amazing Africans, people that we could connect to. Now, I learned from this conference that in addition to depth, one needed breadth. We have to know more about things around us, and this requires an investment of time and interest. And no, a deep knowledge of the transfer market of Arsenal and Chelsea does not count. Now, let's go back to the beginning. How are we educating our children? I spoke earlier about our schools, not even those that do work. How and what are we learning? How and what are we learning? Who here remembers his Igbo catechism? Do you remember the verses? Onye kere gị? Ọ bụ Chukwu kere m was the answer. We learned it. Maka gịnị ka Chukwu jiri kee gị? Chukwu kere m ka m mara ya, ka m fụ ya n'anya, ka m fee ya n'ụwa, ka m wee binyere ya n'anwụlị n'ebebe n'ụwa ọzọ. We all learned these verses. We crammed it, we regurgitated it, we passed our exams for First Holy Communion, and we became men and children of faith. But tell me, brothers and sisters, how do these verses indicate our faith? This is exactly how we are training our children today. For me, that my Igbo at the time was still fairly bad, I crammed all of these verses without even a small understanding of what they meant. But the magic is that once you memorize these verses, regurgitated them successfully, you are deemed ready to be introduced into the faith. How do these verses demonstrate that you are really prepared for the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ? But this is literally what we are doing to our children. We are pushing down the alphabets down their throats, pushing new words, having them regurgitate what they learn in school. They are not learning to think. In fact, we are blocking their thinking pathways by forcing them to learn completely, often useless material. What is the manifestation of this? Look at all the problems that we face in Alaibo today and across the country. There are no longer simple solutions to be found. We have to actually think our way out of this mess that we find ourselves in, and then have the political courage to implement the changes that we find. And yes, some will fail, but we will eventually find our way. In coming here this evening, the roads, the bridges, the trucks, yet it seems hard. But is it really hard? How will we produce these people that will think our way out of these challenges and get them into the system? Let's think about two governors who are trying to do this in Nigeria, to deal with this issue. Now, whether you agree or not with the politics of Nasir El-Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State, after all the uproar about sacking the illiterate teachers he found in Kaduna, he has gone ahead to reform the education in Kaduna State. In January this year, a total of 62,000 applicants sat for qualifying tests to teach in the secondary schools across the 23 local governments in Kaduna State. In April 2018, Governor Basiki in Edo State started training teachers in Edo on how new teaching methods using ICT tools and harmonizing teaching and learning outcomes in primary schools, as well as adopting interacting teaching methods for classroom management, among others. Now, I am not directly advocating for these approaches. Neither am I in awe of the politics of either of these politicians. But I am looking for a governor in the Southeast that will put education at the heart of his agenda. And I haven't seen any. I am also not advocating this as an optional approach for short-term political capital, as none of these will yield results in the short term after 1 or 2 electoral terms. I am saying that it is in our own enlightened self-interest to rethink our approach to education. Where are the intellectuals of our era? How are they driving our development? Where is the university in the Southeast that is producing our elite? We have a crisis of education in Igbo land, both in terms of enrollment in schools and the quality of students being produced. We have stopped thinking, and we have been praying. But there are examples that give us hope. There are a few examples. Many of us last year celebrated the 5 Anambra girls from Regina Pace Secondary School, Onitsha, who won the gold medal at the World Technovation Challenge in Silicon Valley in San Francisco. A school in Onitsha is probably one of the most unlikely places you would expect a technology solution to come from. And yes, it was not the school. It was not the school. Most of the credit must go to one lady, Mrs. UCHE Onwamebu Ugu, who, while attending an education summit outside Nigeria, stumbled on books on robotic models on an exhibition stand. Angry about her own ignorance and scared about her children and others in our community, she came back and decided to do something about it. She decided to bring the concept of STEM education and materials back home. This encounter inspired her to start a social enterprise called the Dufun Technic STEM Hub, where she takes STEM and robotics education materials to different schools, enabling access to students to learn from. Often for the first time, the team, Save a Soul, was founded in one of the schools that UCHE had taken on this mission. It was not the school, my brothers and sisters. It was this lady. Beyond the photos, the photo ops with the governors, you may be forgiven to imagine that after this, schools in Anambra are now planning on how to transform their education experience, fighting to introduce STEM into their education curriculum. Well, sadly, I have no good news for you. The celebration is over, the kids have continued their life, the photo ops are gone, and we are still where we are. Brothers and sisters, let's not believe our own hype. We are not the best educated. We are not focusing on education sufficiently. We are building bigger churches and not schools. Where we have schools, we're educating our children like we learned our catechism, developing people that say the same things in the same way with little thought. Our universities are still stuck in providing an education of the 50s for Nigeria of the 2000s. Umunnem, it is time to get over this education delusion. Else, we will pay a price too scary to imagine. It is not too late. There is a saying that the best time to plant a tree is 100 years ago. The next best time is today. It's time to get to work. Thank you.
We will now head into the interactive session, and Patrick will lead that session. Over to you, Patrick.
Another round of applause for CHIKWE. First of all, just to thank you again for all the effort you made to be here and for a rousing lecture. You've touched on what I believe is the most fundamental problem we face, not just in the Southeast, but also in Nigeria. the fact that we, almost a factory line production of people who, through rote education, can cram a lot of stuff, get good grades when they do, but we haven't figured out how to train the mind, where it becomes inquisitive and where it desires knowledge, the way we desire air. In your experience and in your reflection, where do you think we start? How do we start this journey? So you've got a government that is short-termist in its approach. It has probably 2 years to do some work and then 2 years to plan the next election. How do you get such a government to begin to think long-term solutions? Whilst you're addressing that, how do you also speak to young people who face significant challenges every day? I mean, some of the people listening in the room might say that you had a pretty decent middle-class life, and that maybe that gave you the opportunity to even think about thinking. But if you have to struggle every day to feed or to deal with the real serious challenges we have of living in Nigeria, then thinking becomes a bit of a luxury. So how do we begin this journey, basically?
Patrick, it's an impossible question to answer, because if there was a simple answer, it would have been answered. But I'll use some anecdotes. About 10 years ago, a group of us that finished from Federal Government College, Enugu, started a project we called Project Hope. We started raising money from each other and tried to think of how to invest and support the school. Not only in infrastructure, but in prizes for academic performance and supporting the teachers to grow as well. After about 3 years, we found out that we were not making much progress. At the time, we tried to intervene at the level of the Federal Ministry of Education in Abuja. We didn't have the access, but we had some access to the governor in Enugu State at the time. So we came to him, and he said, well, Federal is a federal institution. Let me focus on my state institution. We asked him, Your Excellency, where do you think 80% of the students in Federal Enugu come from? Unfortunately, it had changed from when we were there, and 80% of the kids were from Enugu State. So where am I getting to? Most societies, not every, is transformed by its elite. And the elite in our society are not doing enough. So, because how societies that have evolved a little bit further have done so is not by creating necessarily the means for those at the bottom of the pyramid. Is that they have created hope that those at the bottom of the pyramid can get into the top. But that top is created by the elite. So I know this is a roundabout answer to an impossible question, but I do think that all of us in this room, and many of us outside this room, that actually have some level of access are not asking the right questions. And if you take, for example, what happened, what's going on today and the anger about South Africa. So when I came to Enugu, I was surprised that ShopRite was open. Now, most of the people affected by the crisis in South Africa, Bundibo, right?
Yeah.
Now, what are the guys in Lagos attacking the ShopRite in Lekki for? It is not in solidarity with Ndibo. It is an economic challenge. So we are living in a pressure cooker. And to get ourselves out of this, we, when I say we, the elite, have to come up and take our responsibilities and push our leaders, including myself, to do more.
So I hear you loud and clear, and the challenge I have is how do you communicate this message to young people? Young people who we have also failed in creating role models for, and young people who live in this pressure cooker and who have to deal with survival on a day-to-day basis. How do we tell a different story? How do we get such a person to see that there is hope, and that hope basically comes through knowledge? That the way out of this rut, is not that you know some senator, but that you become like a mop of knowledge, and that it's knowledge that will get you out of this. How do you communicate that to someone who is really, really focused on how to get a daily bread for today?
So, Patrick, there's no easy answer, but I'll tell you what is happening at the organization I lead at the moment. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has become the most sought-after location for youth service among health professionals in Abuja that have come out of university. Why has this happened? We have taken youth service for what it's supposed to be, so that every young child that comes into our center has a well-defined year of engagement and learning that prepares them for the job market ahead. So by creating this opportunity for them to grow, to learn, and not sit around carrying files and buying soft drinks for members of staff, when they leave NCDC, they're literally in tears because of the experience they have had. When I started, we started an internship program. Of course, we don't have money to pay. One challenge I was seeing is that, even in the corpus that were coming through, they lacked some very basic skills of just writing, reading, Excel. So we started a 3-month internship program and took 6 young people at a time. I was told, as you are told generally in government, this is not wherever you came from. We don't do internships in government. I said, okay, where is it written? A lot of things they tell you is in the civil service rules. That's a book I've learned how to read in detail because many people don't read it. And a lot of the things they tell you is there are actually not there. So we've started this program in developing young people. So I think this is a small drop in an ocean. But together with what you're doing here, together with what many other people are doing, we just have to show them there's an alternative. There's an alternative through which they can become celebrities, which is what many people want to be these days. But if they only see the images that they see, and we are too shy to show them the other side of what is possible, then we end up with where we are. So there's no answer, no perfect answer that I can give, but I'm doing my own little bit in supporting the young people that happen to come through the establishment where I'm working.
So the topic for today, UCHE, the education delusion, essentially argues that the way we are training our young people is not preparing them for the world out there. In fact, we might be completely disconnected with the world out there. Yeah? And you gave personal anecdotes on how you were an excellent student here in UNEC, but then you get to Germany and you're out of your depths. One may also argue that you were able to reconnect in Germany for some of the foundations, yeah, that you built here. If we were to cast our minds back to those early days, those foundations, and then juxtapose them to where we are today as a society, where do you see the gaps? I mean, for me, the first I see is that when we were growing up here in Enugu, Enugu Library was the place you wanted to be in and study in. I'm not sure that today we still have a library, and if we did, if it still works, it's still there? From the way it's going, what I'm hearing is it's there, but it's not quite the way it used to be. Okay, so essentially, I think there were some building blocks, right? If we can speak to those building blocks and then maybe some thoughts on how both government and private sector and all of us can do something in getting some of those building blocks back.
So I'll start with the theory and I'll end with an opportunity. So I recently met a friend of ours, someone that you probably know too. And he told me, this was just during this summer holiday, that he was very worried. His son, who was in Form 4 in a boarding school, had come back home. And the child was completely helpless. And then he referred to our time in Federal Enugu, that at least we were given pocket money and provisions. And you had to make a decision among us that were able to get cornflakes to go to school. Do you drink all your cornflakes on the first day, or do you spread it out over 5 days? So you began to think about prioritization, rationalization, and how to spend and consume. And he told me that his son is not allowed to take pocket money to school, is not allowed to take any provisions to school, so he is handed over to the school completely to manage all his needs for 3 months. And then at the end of the holiday, he's handed back to him. So that his son has no clue about anything, but is doing very well in academia. So I think in responding to the challenges that we have in Nigeria, we've almost gone to the other extreme of protecting our children from learning any life skills. But on the other hand, I tell young people that come to NCDC and pass through my mentorship in one way or the other, that there's no more exciting time for learning than now. I asked them, the first question I asked them, if I'm in a position to help you, what would you ask for? Because that gives me an indication of what they would ask their own uncles for. If a laptop is not at the top of their agenda, I tell them they are not started. You must go and get the cheapest laptop you can possibly get, find the cheapest data package you can possibly get, and you can quickly train yourself in most things, much quicker than any teacher in university or secondary school can train you. But for some reason, the cheap access to data that goes onto our phones gives our young people the delusion of being able to use the internet, because they're using the internet for the things that you can do on your mobile phone. That it's not possible to learn Excel on the mobile phone app for Excel. You need a laptop. So there are many opportunities for learning, but I don't think we're completely pushing on them. Now, by no means do I think that this will solve all the problems. I do wish we would do more, our governors, our schools, but I think there's a lot more young people can do themselves with enlightened parents that push them to doing this.
Excellent. I'll have maybe one more question and then we'll open it up for the audience. how do we, so while you were talking, it still comes down to there's a lot government can do, there's a lot the private sector can do, there's a lot the middle class can do, but I think it comes down to the individual. Yeah? It comes down to if you're really motivated as an individual, you will seek those opportunities to learn. But I don't want to trivialize it, yeah, because that motivation sometimes comes from having role models. You know, if you have an uncle or an aunt who's gone through the education track and has made a middle class lifestyle for him or herself, then you know that's possible. But if all you've seen is someone who came through a very toutish route and ended up as a politician or as a Yahoo somebody and made it, that becomes your model. So I wonder if you've got some thoughts on how do I convince my young cousins or friends or whatever that the only route I see out of where we are is through knowledge. Because knowledge is what allows you to play on the world stage, where Nigeria ceases to be your playing field, but you can then project into the world.
So, my honest answer is that there's no answer to this, other than what we're doing, and especially what you're doing, in creating opportunities to demonstrate to people that there's an alternative pathway to being celebrated. And it's not too long ago that we celebrated our intellectuals in Igbo land. That even the politicians that we think of today, the way we think of them, the politicians of the Nigeria that we read about, the CHIKWEs, the Michael Okparas, were deep intellectuals. The politics that was discussed in my parents' living room in my childhood wasn't the politics of today and wasn't the narrative of today. So we have to find a way to celebrate each other. Those of us, those of you that are doing great things, that are succeeding in whatever walk of life that is different from the two dominant narratives of success in Nigeria today, the political career or the entertainment career. We need to find a few other role models and amplify the work that they are doing. And there are many of them in our country, and especially in this part of the country. But we have to give them a voice and put them in the forefront of our popular discussion.
Excellent. Please, a round of applause for him. And we'll take maybe 4 or 5 contributions, so kind of spread it around.
My name is Victor Nwokocha. I work with African Heritage Institution here in Enugu. And I would like to express deep appreciation to the guest speaker. When I saw the topic, what attracted me most was the delusion, education delusion. It suggested to me that really there are so many people, so many of us, who may have gone to school but are not educated. And going to school without being educated produces and reinforces a paradox, a very tragic paradox that may end up playing out in one's affairs all through life and even affecting society. Now, this paradox is very much present with us in Igbo land. And I would like to challenge us. I would like to suggest, borrowing from what Dr. IHEKWEAZU said about engaging the elite, engaging the policymakers, the politicians, as it were, we need to define and agree and pursue what we may call the Igbo agenda. What is the Igbo agenda? Can we identify it? Can we pursue it? Can we massively advocate for it? Can we begin to internalize it at different levels? If we could do this, perhaps now the elite with the policymakers may be able to work this down to the grassroots and make it impact upon the educational curriculum and contents that are given to young people.
Okay.
That way, I believe, there would be a reawakening and practical restitution of values, educational and otherwise, in Igbo land.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just before you go, because you mentioned you're from Afri-Heritage, can I challenge you to take a minute and a half to lay out how you think this agenda can be set?
Thank you, sir. I think this agenda can be set first and foremost by having the vocal minority in Igbo land volunteer, network, agree, and then set an agenda. For instance, say Dr. IHEKWEAZU convenes a meeting, convenes a gathering, the Center for Memories convenes such a gathering, and from there appoints those who may be able to carry on whatever is decided from the top to the grassroots. And then an agenda may be developed along the line and gradually be driven down to the grassroots. The Igbo young mind needs to be told, needs to be made to be proud of his Igbo-ness and grow from there to the top.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My name is Gregory Nnamdi Nnabi Kemba Jiogo. I belong to the Nsukka group that was discussed here. IHEKWEAZU was my younger brother there. Now, I didn't know that my friend is a good storyteller. I thought that medical students, medical doctors don't tell good stories. I was particularly touched by the story of his not just going to his father's archives, but visiting two schools in Nkwere. And as I followed the visit to Nkwere, my expectations were boiling up. At the point I was enjoying the story, we went away from the school. I wanted to know your interaction with the principals of that school. That's number one. Number two, I know that there are 1,000 elites like you from that community. And I wanted to know whether that community has come together, brought those elites together to say, the government has failed us. Let's not talk about the government. Most of those who are leading us are not supposed to be our leaders. What can we, as a highbrow elite, come together and do for these people who are in trouble? For instance, is there any plan to invite, to discuss with the school and bring auxiliary teachers who will teach those indigent students subjects that no teacher is teaching them until exams? I want to know about that.
Thank you.
Then finally, let me just say this. I was at the Afri-Heritage Center where an event happened. Oken Dibe did a presentation of his book. And we indicted young people so much for not reading books. Right there, one politician, I won't mention his name, was willing to donate five copies of these books to libraries of many communities. And I know I have donated my books to libraries, and I went back to discover that when you donate a book to school libraries and it's not recommended, nobody reads it. But right there inside that hall, there were about 20 young boys who were begging for copy and nobody gave them. So I took the microphone and said that Bernard Shaw says, let's give books to those who are interested in books. And after I said what I said, that these young people here want to read this book, but nobody to give them the book. So Ludo paid for all the copies for all the young people there. That's the action. I want to know the action for this Dick Tiger school and for this King Jaja school. I'm interested, and I know that my friend can do something for those schools.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Some time ago, I had the privilege of being here. That was when my friend and professional colleague, Professor Ken Dibe, had his own interaction with this gathering. I think he was the second person to be here. I talked about having this conversation in our local language, our Igbo language. But that suggestion, it appears, was not heeded, because I know that my colleagues in the West, something of this nature would not take place without being done in their Ofemano language, or even in the North. I would now like to address my brother in our local dialect. And one name nwoke, CHIKWE, mgbe ị bịara nga mụ na nga abụọ hụrụ, and I mụ na nga abụọ hụrụ kpaa nkata, anyị kọrịrị agbuo, obi bịara tọkwa m ụtọ mgbe ikwugo ụka metụta skuulu m. Ana m ekele nwanne m nwoke nọ nga a, ama m ihe m ji kwee skuulu m. Ana m ekele nwanne m nwoke nọ nga otu o siri rụta aka n'ihe metụtara m maka ikwugo ụka kpọtụta Dictaiga Memorial Secondary School, ke na-emetụta m na mkpụrụ obi, ke ndị bekee na-akpọ passion. Echi m nga ahụ pụta, obi na-atọkwanụ m ụtọ na agara m skuulu nga ahụ mgbe ụwa arụ mma, 70s, mgbe ụwa arụ mma. Ma ị gaa nga ahụ ugbu a, anya mmiri ga-agbanwe. N'ihe a nwanne m nwoke gbadoro ụkwụ wee kwuo, maka ekpọ m si na ị ga-emetụta ya, gwa anyị ihe ibu n'obi, maka ikwuru si ị ga-aga ịkpọta ụmụazị ị ga-enyere aka ị ga-azụ. Ele ihe ị ga-emere skuulu Dictaiga, maka nwanne papa ṅụwụ SMC IHEKWEAZU bụ skuulu ahụ n'isi mgbe ọrụ ndụ. Ele ihe ị ga-emere skuulu Dictaiga ka o were ruo otu ọrụ mbụ na 70s.
Thank you very much. I have a question for him. Ndị be anyị si anyụkọ mamịlị ọnụ ọgba ụfụfụ.
Ọ bụ eziokwu.
Ndị be anyị sikwa na obele azụ kpata obele nkụ, nnukwu azụ akpata nnukwu nkụ.
Ọ bụ eziokwu. Ọ bụ eziokwu.
Ndị be anyị sikwa na onye ji n'ụkwa na ọ bụrụ diọkpala agbu.
Ị na-achọ ịzọ ya, ị na-achọ ịzọ Chike.
Enwere m question for you. Maka na anyị na-alụ ofu aka, ịtọ na-alụkwa anyị.
Ọ bụ eziokwu.
Gị nwa gaa na the school. Kee nke imego.
Nke m mere ka, maka ebidoro m chịkọwa ka anyị niile ha gaa na Dictaiga. Taa, site na nchịkọwa ahụ m chịkọwara ha, ha gbakọ mee m onye isi oche ndị gara na Dictaiga. Anyị na-agbakwanụ mbọ ugbu a imedo Dictaiga. Ị ga-jụọ onye isi ụlọ akwụkwọ ahụ ka a na-akpọ prịnsịpal, ọ ga-agwa mbọ anyị na-agba ugbu a ka ya wụ skuulu rụ mma. Ọkwa site n'ihe ke m buru ụzọ were mewe.
Ama m na CHIKWE ga-aza ya bụ ajụjụ, mana ọ bụkwa na ige ntị ka ya nwa na-aza ajụjụ nke okwu mbọ ha nwaga federal na-agba maka federal. Mụnwa go CIC, one of the 5 schools ngo. CIC na-agba mbọ nke ha. So onye ọbụla mara ebe ọ wụ arụ, o jekwachila akwa ya de. Mana ka anyị gaa ebe
ekwuterele Chike, maka Chike wụ onye ama Igbo. Ekwuterele Chike, ebugharịla uche, hapụ ya ka o were aka ya kwuru.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm Edo Gachukwu, and I thank the guest speaker for speaking on education. One of the things here is that it is one of the most important things. I keep saying this in almost all this gathering. Once we miss it, we have missed everything. And it's unfortunate, I would say, the elites in the older generation really failed us as youths, as far as I'm concerned on this. Because when somebody went to a school that was functioning very well, I think he would have said, if I grow up with my own passion, I would say, if the school is failing, I will most likely be saying, no, it can't happen this way. I don't enjoy when people say, when we were there, it was like this, and now what is happening, and you are still folding your hands, right? I thank you for what you have been doing with Federal. And I also think that we need to challenge ourselves in this room. We have been speaking so much English and so much talk. If all of us can go back to the school where you actually graduated from, where you schooled. Let's take, for instance, now, I graduated in 99, my 99 set. Let's take a classroom block and do. The set that is below us can take another block and do. And that set that is above us can go and supply that place with computers. In 5 years of doing this, this will have changed.
Sure.
In most societies, most people that actually, most people that went to school in the 60s, it was the community that contributed money and sent them to school. And after sending them to school, none of that same culture didn't continue. Why? Because probably the people who went to school that used that opportunity never came back to contribute and make that thing functional. Because if that same thing that happened in the 60s has been happening till now, I think we won't be lacking.
Thank you.
And also, because of want of time, I want to say one thing extra, just one more thing. It is not only something money can solve. Building blocks, building classes. If you say recruit 100 teachers, how many of them are well trained? I think we as people who are educated need to sometimes make our time to go to these schools and teach. Just teach mathematics, teach English, dedicate 1 hour of your time, 2 hours of your time in a week, and be able to practically train people on something.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Hello. My name is George Emetuche. I'm an author of 7 books. I came here, this is my first time of coming. My friend Ken Ikokere invited me. I live in Lagos. I run a training company, consulting company. Why I came to Enugu is to promote a conference. And I want this noble gathering to define a path or to form a discussion or to define a way where will the Igbo nation, the Igbo people, Umuibe, will have a common direction. Whether you're going to call it Akuruono, or whether you're going to call it Nkabonkani, or whether you're going to call it Think Home, whatever you want to call it. And I am a salesman. I believe in products and services. I believe that you need to buy your own product before other people will buy it. And somebody said something that we need to begin to go to our schools. Yesterday, because if you're talking about what have you done for your own, I want to say before I stand up here to talk, I will say what I've done. Yesterday, I was at the University of Nigeria with my team, Lagos alumni of the university, Lagos chapter. We went there to empower the students. I was one of the speakers. If you are in Enugu, I was at UNEC today to empower the students. What we are saying, we did it today, we did it yesterday. And I took that advantage to donate my books at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, University of Nigeria, Enugu campus. This is part of what we need to begin to do. It's not just about saying it. I think the Igbo nation, the Igbo people, I was discussing somewhere today, that the Igbo man is somehow endangered. How do we sell our product to the Nigerian public? How do we sell our product to the African nation?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give the speaker an opportunity to respond, and then we'll come back for more.
Thank you, Patrick. I think most of these are comments, so there are really no questions. But just to pick on Greg and my brother in the past at the back around the Tiger Memorial, and as an example of schools altogether. One challenge I think we have, especially in the Southeast, is a little bit exemplified by some of the comments. In terms of defining the question as what have I done? We can't solve these problems by what any of us as individuals can do. We have to come together. There are some problems that you have to come together. I'm not saying everybody in the Southeast, but I'm saying we have to form a critical mass of people that will come together. And in a way, our fathers' generation seem to have done that a lot better. There were very strong town unions. And where we grew up, everybody went to the village meetings. People spent hours in dialogue so that they could reach consensus on a way forward. We have lost a lot of that, and we all think that we have the solution. So I'll be the first to raise up my hand and say, on my own, I don't have the solution. But I am calling on some of us and some of you in the room, let's come together and think our way out of this. And none of us as individuals will find the solution to the depth of the problems that we have at the moment. Thank you.
A round of applause, please. We'll come back to the audience in 2 seconds, but there was a question on the use of Igbo language, yeah? And that's a question we get every time we come for these sessions. And again, it's not an easy question to answer. I am very fluent in Igbo. I made A1 in Igbo in UCHE. I write in Igbo, I speak it. I think I'm pretty damn good. But there are people who have great things to share about the experiences, which is what we want to share, part of what we want to share with these sessions. And some of those concepts cannot be explained in Igbo. Not because the individual does not want to, but because the language has not evolved to that level. Now, the flip side of it is that the more we speak the language, the more the language will evolve to that level. So it becomes like chicken and egg, which comes first. So what we have offered to our speakers is, where you can, say it in Igbo. If you need to swear Igbo, swear. If you need to explain it in English, explain it. Mano latoboto, ekwobi ekwo. If we set that standard, that unless you can deliver it flawlessly in Igbo, don't come, then we have a very limited pool to pick from. So I'm not making any excuses. I'm just saying that because we'll ultimately get there. With time, we will solve all of those problems. So I crave your indulgence to allow us to continue like this for a bit until we get to a point where we can have speakers who are very fluent in the language and we can continue. So let's take another round of questions, please.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is CHIKWE and I work with Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital. What I want to say actually borders on, because we are talking about education, I want to say one thing that I think the last guy here mentioned a little bit. Teachers need to be brought into this conversation. And I'm going to use myself as an example. My primary and secondary school, I can say that I'm a good student. Then I entered university. And I didn't do well, not because I don't permit me to say, because I actually challenged my lecturers when they marked me down. Because I don't cram. I read and I understand and I write down what I understand. And I don't use their words verbatim and I get marked down. So one time I challenged my lecturer why, and he said, I didn't use his words. I was surprised because that was not what I taught from primary to secondary school. So my point is, if we are going to teach our children, I think teachers need to be involved. That it's not about cramming. It's about them understanding what you're trying to teach them and allow them to express themselves how they understood what you taught.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Ikena Nolim. I've come a long way from Abakaliki. I'm a consultant with the teaching hospital there. Dr. IHEKWEAZU, you're welcome. I'm happy that we have you here talking about UCHE and Igbos and all these challenges we have today. much you said is very well taken, and I've listened to everyone here very well, but I want us to get this, my own perspective of the whole problem. I see you coming from the education aspect. Yes, that's what you're talking about, but I believe that whatever is happening in the education field is happening all around in Igbo. We are having problems in the healthcare field. We're having problems in education. We're having problems in finance. We're having problems. The economy is not doing as well. That's why you have so many Igbo young people all running away to the West, to Lagos, South Africa, Malaysia, everywhere. What is happening here now is sad. And I attribute all this to the loss of our value system. I believe our teachers, our elites, our government officials, our politicians have not done enough to give back or to coordinate good leadership for our younger generations. And I'm here to say this. Think about it yourself, IHEKWEAZU. What was UNTH where you went to school like in the 90s, and what is it like today? It's not better, it's getting worse. I say that for most other government institutions in Igbo land. What point I'm trying to make is, I'm challenging everyone here to look at ourselves individually and say, what is the reason why? Why is it that the average Igbo young man growing up now in our school system is more worried about making money than coming out with good degree? Or coming out with good value system in our communities? Who do we worship? Who do we see as our role models? Please, my point for everyone here is, Dr. IHEKWEAZU, please tell me, what do you think is the way forward?
Thank you.
What is the way forward so that we can get back our value system, so that we can solve the problem both in education, health, agriculture, economics, solve our financial issues and our economy, and also get our value system back.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Ozokoye. I want to direct our minds back to the expectation of an educated person. It's expected that when you go to school, you come out, you become successful. That is what we have as in our minds. But sadly, the situation is not true today. I want to make a particular emphasis as regards the current Yahoo situation. If you go to most universities today, it is the den for training Yahoo people. You see students driving flashy cars, even while as students, and they engage in very illicit activities. Is there anything we can do to change the mindset that it is not, that you can actually go to school and actually come out and be something useful to the society? Secondly, I keep hearing about the Igbo agenda, the Igbo agenda. Is there an Igbo agenda? If there is, please, I want to know.
Thank you.
Then finally, I'm a veterinarian, so when I saw that the director for Center of Disease Control is coming, I was very happy. So I want to use this opportunity to say that if there are opportunities available for veterinarians in your center, if there are, we are unaware of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, my name is Cyril Dim. I actually teach at the College of Medicine, University of Nigeria. Well, I welcome the great lion, Dr. CHIKWE, and I thank the organizers. Delusion in the educational sector is real. Every nook and cranny of Enugu State, you see primary school, secondary school, private, being approved by Enugu State government. And you wonder what they do there. Now, I'm not complaining, I want to make a suggestion. You see, in the medical school, at least every 5 years, we try to review our curriculum. And the review is based on gaps. Now, what we've identified, we are going towards competence-based learning. We want to be sure if this guy is trained, he can do this and do this. But our problem is that those boys and girls that come from the secondary schools are poorly trained. They just memorize. They lack capacity to think. They can't even do anything for themselves. Now, sir, my suggestion is that this Center for Memories maybe working hand in hand with you, sir, we make a position paper to this meeting of governors or whatever they call themselves. What I want them to do is that the commissioners of education in all the states should come together and ask ourselves, develop a think tank. I can even help. I have plenty of people that can help. What do we want our kids in primary school to learn? We need to identify those competencies. They must learn. Now we develop the curriculum to do that. And now look for those who can teach those things. What we have now, I go to schools a lot. Sure. I ask them, do you have syllabus? Students don't know what they call syllabus. Meanwhile, they take jam every day. I went to one of the good schools in Anambra State, St. Charles Special Science School. What our principal did the first time we came was to buy syllabus and give everybody and encourage us to use that.
Sure.
Let us develop a competence-based education. And the first thing is to how do we make our children to speak Igbo?
Thank you.
That should be number one.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, all. My name is Dr. Chinyelu Nwabufo. I'm a medical doctor and also a public health scholar of Southwest University. I also had a similar experience with you. I had the opportunity of going for my electives in Oxford University and worked partly with Health Protection Agency, Thames Valley Unit. So I did a project on malaria notification in that same unit. But the thing is, the challenge I had that was similar with yours is that I thought, okay, I had it all together. But here you're given a project to do, you're just on your own, nobody to do that with you. Because of my hunger for public health and the passion that I had, I gave it all my best. I was the first elective student ever to be sent to public health department in Oxford University. So I had this challenge of trying to make a name for myself, which I successfully did. So the thing is, I wanted to add to what he was saying. I said everybody has said virtually everything, but nobody has mentioned anything on curriculum. The curriculum still remains the same. I noticed that what I did in public health in school was different from the way I was taught in Oxford was entirely different. You're allowed to do critical thinking, appraisals. You know, nobody's detecting any note to you. Nobody's reading the note of 10 years ago. No lecturer is detecting those things. So how do we address this thing? But sadly, the political aspect will have to come in here because the Minister of Education and the Commissioner of Education will have a role to play in this. Excellent. By changing the curriculums.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Dr. IHEKWEAZU, and my condolences on the loss of your cousin, Uzo, who was a very good friend of mine. My name is Michael Ifeanyi Orekie. I'm a special assistant to the governor of Anambra State and the founder of what is now called Society of Igbo Professionals, SIP. Gathering from everything the audience has said and what you've said as well, I want us to ask ourselves one very critical question. What is the objective of education? Why are we teaching our children? Why are they ending up in the professions they're ending up? And in the classroom, what is the student meant to be doing? Once upon a time, it was a competition. First, second, third. That was what we're after. You read your books, you're the best in the class, you come first. If you fail and you go back, you repeat. And it's part of learning. Sometimes you need to fail to learn. But today, everybody's just after a certificate, a piece of paper. So we need to ask ourselves that basic question. What is the objective of our education? Are we doing it to learn, or are we doing it to get a piece of paper? If we don't get that right, we're missing it altogether.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, just briefly. There's they've been talking about values. A lot of the speakers talked about values. And one of the things we've been able to raise up in SIP was the Ndibo Values Initiative, NVI. We came up with this about 2 years ago, and the idea is this. Our fathers, our forefathers, taught us values on their laps by oral tradition. But those values have long been lost. So we highlighted 10 of them on this sheet in the Igbo language and in English as well. And the cards are available to share. Everywhere I go, I take the opportunity to share these cards so that the values we think we've lost and the values our children don't have, let them be shared on these cards everywhere I go. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank Dr. CHIKWE for being here. I've been following you on Twitter for some time now, and I can also relate to your experience in studying outside the country. You know, for some of us who had the opportunity of doing postgraduate outside, especially in the US, you will notice that the system is such that allows you to think. But here, our system is such that wants you to give back what we are given. And my own experience, just like our sister has shared earlier, is such that when my first exam came at Tulane, I'm sure you know Tulane, New Orleans Public Health Institute, I scored 87% and I thought I had done well. But when I saw the overall scores of my classmates who had made 100 plus, I felt ashamed of myself. And I had to ask the lecturer, why did I score so low? And he said, because I gave him back what he gave me. He wanted me to think. That was the first experience I had. Now, coming back to what you had said earlier, you had asked a question which some people probably did not understand. Most schools we have today do not know or realize that library is very important for schools. We had a library in Enugu that was called Eastern Library, which I used so proficiently when I was growing up. I'm not sure if the youths here today realize there's a library like that today. I would also want to let us know that Center for Memories are doing something to help our children to read. So beyond all we have said today, our children don't read. Our children don't read. Now, we have schools that employ teachers who are not trained to be teachers. Most of the private schools we have today employ corps members. They employ people who have read courses that have nothing to do with education to teach our children.
Sure.
And that is why they don't have curricula, they don't have schedules, they don't have scheme. They just teach our children without following a methodology that we had used
Sure.
that made us to be able to get it today. So I want us to also look at how we can review what our children are taught. A lot of what they are being taught today are things they don't need.
Sure.
And they are often made to regurgitate them so that they can pass exams.
Thank you.
So if we can get our children to be taught well, if we can get our schools to employ people who have been taught to be teachers,
Sure.
to teach our children, perhaps we'll be able to get somewhere.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Patrick, and your team. My name is Ifeanyi Mmadụ. Mine is a comment and a question. When we were in school, the idea was for you to go to school, make a good grade, and look for job. So in doing that, you make sure you attend class, probably cram what the teacher has said, and then reproduce it and make your A or B. Now, when you were making your points, one of the things I took from there is that education is supposed to give us ability to think, ability to solve problems. If you look at our society in Southeast, we have lots of problems. Nobody is solving them. Our graduates are supposed to provide solutions to some of the social problems around us here. It's not everything that government is supposed to provide. But the challenge I see, which is where my question is, are we focusing so much on employment? You're going to school to just get a job.
So once you go to school, make a good grade, make a 2-1, make first class, and then go and get job, bank job, government job, and then people narrow their learning towards the course they are studying. Then the ability to read wide and be able to solve problems are no more there. Thank you.
I don't think there's much to respond to. I think this has been a fascinating conversation. At least we've listened to all our thoughts about education and critical thinking and the skills that we need for the future. The challenge is I think we're still taking it as a nice to have. I don't think many of us are fully aware of how far ahead the world has moved. This is an existential issue for us. It's not something that we can, debate about with kids' gloves. So I leave here as anxious as I was when I came. And I hope that many of you leave with the same level of anxiety. And we go and start thinking about what we can do about it. Because in many parts of the world, when you hear about things like artificial intelligence, what it means is that machines are being taught how to think, how to adapt to the environment that they're working. So we as humans at least need to kind of keep up that pace. The technology that is coming, we will need to have to deal with it and have to compete. So there are no easy responses to the debates. I'm just excited that so many people have an opinion about this and that we can go back and maybe in our families, in our schools, societies, hospitals, think about how we can organize our own ward differently. Very often when we think about education and thinking, we all focus on the classroom setting. The ward rounds that we're doing for doctors, how can we make a ward round more effective as a learning opportunity? Are we still doing it the way our consultants did it 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And the same for every other profession. So there are many opportunities for education that we have to diversify our thinking out of just where we're sending our children to. It's also how we are engaging with our own workspace, our own environment, and the opportunities for learning that we have every day.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause for him. As we get closer to the end of the program, permit me maybe 3 minutes to share my thoughts. When Nana and I thought about having one of these sessions focus on education, it was out of a deep sense of the urgency of the problem we face. Education, in my view, is really supposed to open up the mind. It's supposed to open up the mind. But somehow, we were sold this thing that education is supposed to help us get jobs. In a country that is not producing jobs, the country is not producing jobs. And if the prognosis from people who should know is correct, the country will not produce jobs. So if you read the IMF report that came out about 4 or 5 months ago, this year, we're going to see about a 2.1% growth in our GDP. Over the next 5 years, it's going to be about 2.4%. This economy should be growing at least at 7%, but where it really needs to be is at 10%. So, my interest in this particular session is to share with us that the future is very bleak. And that the only way we can get out of it is that we as individuals will have to find a way out of it. And the only way I see is through knowledge that allows you to tap into a market outside the boundaries of this country, or to create value in this country that somebody will pay for, and not wait for a job because, sorry, it is not coming. And it is not me saying it, it is people who track this type of things. So, if you're a young person, if you have young people around you, the objective of this session is to communicate that education as we know it, there's a delusion there. There's a delusion there. We must open up our minds. And what you need to do this stuff, I think the lady over there captured it, I wrote it down. It's hunger and passion. And nobody can do it for you. The governors cannot do it for us. It is something that must come from within. And if what I have shared has not scared you enough, then your case is probably bigger than my solution. Yeah? Now, if you're a young person, there's a language you must learn. There's a language you must learn. When we were in school, we had to learn English. There's a language that the world is speaking today. And that language is technology. Technology. It is a language that allows you to sit in Ababa, where I grew up, by the way, and sell into the world. You can sit anywhere and sell into the world, such that the boundaries of Enugu State or Nigeria has nothing on you. So, there's a lot going on. There's a gentleman that spoke, Michael Oreke. If you haven't spoken to him, talk to him, because he is at the epicenter of a lot of the technology things that are happening in the Southeast. There are hubs here in Enugu, Genesis Hub, Tech Hub, that, if you've got an idea and you can code, you have a chance of winning $30,000 right here in Enugu to build your business. And I'm sure the Genesis people are here, you can speak to them. That is the purpose of this. And if that is the only message we're able to communicate tonight, then the 8 hours CHIKWE spent trying to get to Enugu and all the trouble we go through in putting this thing together would have been worth it. So on that note, I thank you so much, and I invite Nnanna to bring this to a close.
Thank you so much, Patrick and CHIKWE. Please, another round of applause for them. Thank you so much for another incisive lecture and interactive session. Everything that should be said has been said, but whatever is left unsaid, please continue the conversation, take it to the social media, take it to your dining tables. Let's continue to harp on this message, on the preeminence of education and what Patrick has just said, opening the mind. Think about technology. We cannot say it enough. Now, we want to bring this to a close, but I'm sure some of us heard yesterday, there was an exhibition that Life in My City art exhibition at Alliance Francaise. I heard some of the artists exhibiting are here. Can we recognize them? Are they here? The young artists who are exhibiting at Life in My City. Just give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for what you are doing. I love art a lot because it takes a lot of imagination to be a good artist. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. And on that note, I want to invite another co-conspirator of ours and one of the members of the leadership of Center for Memories, Nkata, to just give us a vote of thanks.
Good evening, everybody. Just to say a quick thank you to all of you for coming today. Thank you to Dr. CHIKWE. Thank you to Patrick and Nnanna. We're going to be having this, by God's grace, next month again. So we'd like you guys to please join us and invite as much people as possible. You can see that we're discussing things that are very important to us and pertinent to the Southeast. So as you go home, safe travels. And for those who came outside of Enugu, thank you very much, and we'll see you next month. Let's have our picture session now.